Hey guys, so here are the notes for 4.3/4.4. We're now going to combine our factoring when a equals 1 and when a does not equal 1 to solve these quadratic equations. Okay, so you're going to be hearing me using some vocabulary words such as solutions or roots, okay? These are just ways whenever we do solve our quadratics, at the end, that's what they're called. So you can say solutions, roots. Another word would be also zeros. So if you see that, that's another way of saying our solutions. So solutions, roots, zeros. You're going to hear more about roots later on, and x-intercepts when we get to the graphing part, which will be next unit of our quadratics, okay? So let's talk about the steps to follow so we can solve. So we're going to factor the quadratics like we've done in the 4.3 and 4.4 sections. Then set each factor equal to 0. Once we've done that, then we solve for each equation for the variable. Okay, let's go ahead and do that for the first one. Now, anytime we actually do solve, we want to make sure that our equation is set equal to 0. So every single time you need to solve by factoring, set the equation equal to 0. So let's look at example 1. We have x squared minus 3x minus 18 equals 0. Is it already set equal to 0? Yes. So now we can factor. Now remember, when we did our 4.4, we talked about, okay, do the terms have something in common that we can take out? Well, let's look at this one. If we look, is there any numbers that 1, 3, and 18 have in common? Well, it's just 1, so there's nothing else. What about a variable? No. So now all we have to do is we have to factor, so we create our two sets of parentheses. And notice our a value is 1, so all I need to do is find the numbers that multiply to 18 and then factor. So I have 1 and 18, 2 and 9, 3 and 6. Okay, now which pair will add up to our middle term of 3x? That will be 3 and 6. So I have x and x, 3 and 6. I am adding up to a negative 3, so I'm going to have a positive 3 and a negative 6. Now we are not finished. These are what we call factors. So you heard me using those words whenever we did factor, okay? So what we need to do is set each factor equal to 0 and solve for the variable. So I'm going to have x plus 3 equals to 0 and x minus 6. So on the first one, I move the 3 over, so I get x equals negative 3. And on the other one, I add 6 to the other side, so I get x equals 6. So I have two solutions, two roots, or two zeros, okay? So remember, solutions, roots, zeros, they all mean the same thing. Now let's try that for number 2. So we have y squared plus 16y plus 64 equals 0. Is this already set equal to 0? Yes. So we get to factor. So we create my two sets of parentheses and equal to 0. Okay? Now our next thing is there these three terms, is there anything we can take out that they have in common? No. So that's why I set my two sets of parentheses, because they don't have a variable in common and they don't have a number. So since my a value is 1, all I need to do is find the numbers that multiply to 64. This is going to be kind of a long list here, okay? So just be careful. So we have then 2 times, that's going to be, and then we have not 3, we'll have 4. That'll be 4 and 16 there. Okay. So we have, yes, so 2 times 32, and then 4 times 16, 5, 6, 7, then we have 8 times 8. There we go. So we kind of have a long list on this one. Okay, which pair will add up to our 16 in the middle? That will be the 8. And notice we need to add it to a positive, so we're going to have plus and plus. Okay, now I set each of my factors equal to 0 and solve. So y plus 8 equals 0. And on both of them, I subtract 8, so I get y equals negative 8. So I get the same answer on both of these. Okay, let's look at number 3. Now, remember, first, is this already set equal to 0? Yes, we have x squared minus 9. Do these two terms have anything in common that we can take out? No. Now, notice what this is. It is a binomial. We're subtracting. Notice there's no middle term. And look at that number 9. What do we know about it? It is a perfect square. So this is a difference of squares Okay? So when we factor, we're going to have our two sets. We have x and x. What is the square root of 9? That's going to be 3. So remember, when we do this, we have 1 plus and 1 minus. And remember, the order does not matter here. So now I'm going to set each factor equal to 0. So remember, x minus 3 is a factor, and x plus 3 is a factor. And then I solve. So I move the 3 over, I get x plus 3. And for the other one, I move it, and I get negative 3. And so our two answers are 3 and negative 3. So those are our solutions, roots, and zeros. Okay, let's look at the next ones. Okay, let's try number 4 together here. So for number 4, is this already set equal to 0? Yes, so we're good to go. Now, do these three terms have anything in common that we can take out? No. So now we can go ahead and create our two sets of parentheses. Now, no, this is where a does not equal 0, or a does not equal 1. So we need to find the factors, or the numbers that multiply to 9, which is 1 and 9 and 3 and 3, and do the same thing for 4. So we have 1 and 4 and 2 and 2. Okay, now both of these have multiple pairs in their list, so we're going to start from the bottom, okay? So we're going to start from the bottom of the 4, which is 2 and 2. And same thing with the 9, start from the bottom of the list, which is 3 and 3. This is where we do our guess and check method. So I'm going to multiply the inner, so 3 times 2x gives me 6, and 2 times 3 once again. So if I add or subtract that 6x and 6x, can I get 12? Yes. If these are positive, both of them, that works. Okay, now I need to set each factor equal to 0. So I have 2x plus 3 equal to 0, and 2x once again. So here we are going to get the same answer because they are the same factors. First thing is I move the 3 over to give me negative 3. Then I divide both sides by 2, and that will give me x equals negative 3 halves. Okay, let's look at the next one. M squared minus 6m equals 0. Is this set equal to 0? Yes. Do these two terms have something in common? Yes. Notice they both have an m in common. So we're going to go ahead and take that out and rewrite this equation here. So m squared divided by m just gives me m. Negative 6m divided by m gives me negative 6. Now, can I factor anymore? No, because notice none of these have a squared anymore. So now we set our factors equal to 0. So both the m and the m minus 6, these are the factors. Okay? So I'm going to have m equals 0 and m minus 6 equals 0. So our first answer is already m equals 0. Because though you don't see a plus or minus, that is still a variable, so you have to set it equal to 0. Now on the next one, I'm going to move the 6 over, and I'm going to get n equals 6. That's my second solution, okay? So be careful on those. Those are a little bit of the tricky ones. Don't forget, if it has a variable, set that equal to 0 to solve. Okay, I want you guys to go ahead and pause the video and try number 6 on your own. Okay, let's see what you did. First of all, is 5x squared minus 45 equals 0 set equal to 0? Yes. Do these two terms have something in common we can take out? Yes. They both have a 5 in common that we can take out. Now, let's go ahead and rewrite. We have 5x squared divided by 5. That just gives me x squared. And 45 divided by 5, that gives me 9. Now, can we still factor? Yes, because notice inside the parentheses we have a squared. So since we have a squared here, we are still able to factor. Now also notice what type of factoring this is going to be. This is going to be our difference of squares because we have a binomial, we're subtracting. We don't have that middle term, and 9 is a perfect square. So I'm going to create my two sets of parentheses. I did bring the 5 down, so I have x and x. What's the square root of 9? That's going to be 3, and one's going to be plus, one's going to be minus. Now, make sure on this one, notice we have the 5. If we set the 5 equal to 0, is that a true statement? No. So in this case, though 5 is on the outside, like we saw with m, there is no variable attached with it, so we don't set that equal to 0. Only if there is a variable will you set that equal to 0. So the only thing we do set equal to 0 is going to be the x plus 3 and the x minus 3, because we are solving. So we get x equals negative 3 and x equals 3. And so those will be my two answers. Remember, solutions, roots, or zeros. Okay, make sure you watch the next video over solving quadratics by factoring.